Cutting right to the chase here, in a nutshell, I was wrong. I'm certain there's a sword nearby somewhere which perhaps I might trip over and fall upon for your amusement. I'm John Cadogan from AutoExpert.com.au and I get new cars cheap for buyers here in Australia. Website for that, obviously, but hey, the purpose of today's video is much more to confront my own fallibility in front of witnesses. And I do, of course, want you to have the best, most accurate information available, the better to make an informed choice in respect of any new vehicle that might be on your shortlist. Mainly because there's so much friggin' money on the table, isn't there? Anyway, in my recent Hyundai Palisade review published earlier this week, I did say that the towball download limit was 100 kilos. However, shortly after publication of that statement, I was made aware by Hyundai in Australia that, in fact, the limit is 150 kilos. This is an important clarification because I did level a somewhat serious tirade of criticism against the vehicle based on that ultimately incorrect figure. In that report, the error is at 13 minutes and 50 seconds in, more or less, FYI. What this means is that Palisade is actually a pretty strong contender for towing about 1,500 kilos, especially the diesel, which has a powertrain that's almost ideal for that kind of assignment. If your trailer maxes out at like 1,500 kilos and you load it so that it delivers 150 on the towball and not a penny more, then this is a solid combination for dynamic stability. And the Palisade, with its somewhat heavy overall mass and long wheelbase, is a good complementary platform for that particular assignment. And I'd go further than that and say that even a trailer at 2,000 kilos with 150 on the towball, that's like 7.5% of the aggregate trailer mass on the ball, which is neither outrageous nor unsafe, okay? So if you take precautions, including things like limiting your speed to, say, 90 k's an hour maximum and driving conservatively in the context of the prevailing conditions, and being experienced at towing and ensuring that your trailer and vehicle are both roadworthy and the trailer is set up properly and other risk mitigating steps of that nature, you should be quite okay at 2,000 kilos of trailer with 150 on the towball. However, I still would not go over about 2 tons with a stock Palisade. And the anatomy of this error is just honest mistake. And if you want to drill down into it, it occurred like this. About a week or so before Christmas, a viewer like you reached out and told me that it had been alleged to him that the Palisade download limit was 100 kilos and, hey, could I confirm or deny? And that did seem somewhat low to me, so I went on the hunt for the data. I interrogated the local Palisade specs, which problematically did not list a towball download limit, but did happen to confirm the 2,200 kilo aggregate trailer mass limitation, which is the maximum total trailer weight loaded, in other words. So Christmas Eve by then, okay, so I reached out to Hyundai in Shitsville. What's the towball download capacity on Palisade? A viewer just alleged to me it's 100 kilos maximum. On investigation, I couldn't find it in the specs and Google apparently doesn't know either. Christmas Eve, and yet they got back to me within a couple of hours. Yes, 100 kilos maximum download for Palisade. We are developing a tow assist kit to raise it to 150 kilos like the old Santa Fe. At this point, of course, I felt as if I had enough to run with, like an allegation that had been corroborated straight out of the horse's friggin' mouth. I have to say that it did seem like a pretty dodgy choice, but I told myself that companies are allowed to make dud calls if that is their want, and there might be a reason for it of which I was unaware. I certainly wasn't about to go 100% Microsoft on all of this and respond back with, "Are you sure? Yes/no." Not on the eve of the annual reindeer-abusing flight of the obese, red-suited home invader, because I have to say I was rather looking forward to that. So, Fast forward a couple of hours after putting the Palisade review live this week, and Hyundai gets back to me and goes, dude, it's actually 150 kilos. Oops-a-daisy, our bad. And they added, that load assist kit we're developing is actually going to increase the download limit to 200 kilos. On balance, both of these things comprise good news, right? And in light of that, I would suggest that Palisade is good to go for about 1,500 kilos of trailer out of the box. If you want to tow more than that, however, it might be prudent to fit the load assist kit, which is not yet available, but is essentially just a set of variable rate coil springs. And coincidentally, I did that to my previous generation Santa Fe, which increased the download from 100 to 150 kilos. And I then did a tow test of that at 2,000 kilos of ATM with 150 kilos on the ball. And I will link to that test here if you'd like to review it. The executive summary, though, I towed one of their i30Ns on a purpose-built aluminium trailer up and down a mountain several times, and not once did it launch itself into the scenery or even threaten to do so, which, when you think about it, is pretty much the gold standard for this kind of activity after all. So this is where we find ourselves at, inconveniently. I do apologise once again for this error, which was wholly unintentional, but hey, it still happened. It really doesn't matter whose fault it was either, I'd suggest. What really matters is accuracy. So I just want to make a quick comment about that, being wrong, which is, of course, an intrinsic part of the human condition. In the context of these videos, I hate the concept of being wrong, ever. And yet it happens from time to time. And it's usually an own goal, okay? Like mea friggin' culpa. But the challenge of being right should not be underestimated by you out there in the audience. Like that Palisade report is 40-something minutes long. So if it were free-to-air TV, it'd be an hour of airtime because the split out there is roughly 2 minutes of content for every 1 minute of ads and nauseating network promos. And I do not know how many facts are referenced in that review, dozens upon dozens certainly, and there's just one of me producing it, okay? I write the script, I present it, I cut it, and I post it. So we all know who's ultimately responsible, but there is a lot of mechanism for failure in that system, potentially. Underlying that is the communicational cesspit we all find ourselves in today, where a great many people out there in the audience take great delight in every error, mainly because it gives them a proper chubby to condemn the creator to hell for eternity and ascribe the worst possible interpretation to every unintentional stumble which they detect. My personal fact-checking nightmare is relying on poor evidence and subsequently making an allegation of something potentially defamatory, let's say impropriety or dishonesty, whatever, having it properly refuted subsequently, and then getting sued for defamation and thus losing my substantial truth defence, which is why I really do try quite hard not to go anywhere near that particular situation. But in the domain of less self-serving reasons to respect the facts, right? Surely the facts matter ultimately more than clinging to a position which one knows to be wrong. The scientific method, right, which is to say the only means by which you and I and everyone else in the developed world is not all out there living in friggin' caves right now and busting our asses hunting and gathering just to feed ourselves. That method teaches us to drop or adapt every theory in the face of better evidence. And if we don't continue to do that as a species, I'd suggest humanity is screwed, like properly screwed. And obviously, there's a lot of nuance in many issues out there that matter today, and we should aggressively debate that. But we can't do it effectively unless there's a willingness to accept better evidence and to acknowledge that the facts are more important than any position you care to take or have previously taken. Like, I look around today and I see a world despairingly beset on many sides with considerable challenges, and I see a lot of unqualified, ignorant people, and what they're basically doing is shouting at each other from indefensible, self-serving positions. For example, people tell me that batteries are going to get 10 times or even 5 times better over the next decade, or that solar cells are going to get twice as efficient or thrice as efficient, or that renewables can save humanity. And all of that is, of course, just nonsense. If you studied physics or chemistry, you would, of course, know why it is nonsense. Which presumably is why we don't see too many people with PhDs in physics, chemistry, or engineering up on soapboxes saying that kind of thing. You know, if you want me to lay out why this is so, let me know and I will do a report on that for you. I've even had people tell me that renewables are far safer than nuclear energy. Like, dude, you've got to be kidding. More people have died falling off rooftops installing solar arrays than have ever died as a consequence of nuclear energy. And this includes Chernobyl and Fukushima, okay? In fact, death from photovoltaics per unit energy produced is about 20 times higher than for nuclear, okay? Death from photovoltaics. I mean, I know which industry I would prefer to work in. There's no doubt. That's according to the International Atomic Energy Agency, in case you were wondering. Coal is actually more radioactive to the population as a whole versus nuclear, and getting on a commercial jet and flying at altitude, remember being able to do that, that's even worse from a radiation dosage perspective. Just saying. Even though I doubt your average greenie would see eye to eye with me on all of that, but I know which side the facts are on, and this is essentially what I'm talking about here. Anyway, enough ranting from me on all of this. Let's just say that, frankly, we need more scientifically literate people respecting the facts and calling the shots. And what I see is more scientifically illiterate people just shouting at each other out there on platforms like Twitter and the YouTube comments feed. Yes. In this report, I just didn't want to be like a total hypocrite and gloss over an important error in that Palisade package, because I want you to have the best information, right? Apologies again for any confusion or inconvenience. And I'm not playing the blame game on this either. Reports like this are complex and I never claim to be infallible, all right? Essentially, I just want you to be able to move ahead with the best possible information available. That's important in this instance, I think you'd agree, and generally, like philosophically, for humanity. Thanks for watching.